They laughed, and you let them. That was your first move. You didn't correct them. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't post a response, send a message, or make a single sound. You just watched, the way a man watches who already knows how the game ends. There's a type of person who walks into a room and gets overlooked, gets passed over, gets dismissed before they even open their mouth. And then one day, the room changes, the energy shifts, and every single person who laughed goes very, very quiet. That day, it's already coming for you. Let's talk about silence. Real silence. Not the silence of someone who has nothing to say. The silence of someone who has already decided what they're going to do and doesn't need your permission to do it. There is a man who grew up in the back streets of Birmingham. The world told him he was nothing. The world showed him poverty, violence, and war. The world did everything in its power to break him before he even had a chance to begin. And he looked at all of it, the hunger, the mud, the darkness, and he said nothing. He simply made a decision, somewhere deep in his chest, that the world was going to owe him a debt, and he was going to collect it. That man was Thomas Shelby. Now, you are not Thomas Shelby, neither am I, but there is something in his psychology, something in the way he moved through the world that goes beyond fiction, because every real person who has ever risen from nothing has operated by a version of the same code, and that code begins with silence. When you are being underestimated, your instinct is to speak, to prove, to show, to say, "You don't know who I am, you don't know what I'm capable of," and that instinct, that's the instinct that will keep you small. Every word you spend defending yourself is a word you didn't spend building. Every second you waste proving yourself to someone who already dismissed you is a second that person is living rent-free in your head. The man who wins doesn't explain himself. He executes, and the explanation comes later, in the form of results nobody can argue with. You have been underestimated, maybe by a boss who never saw your potential, maybe by a family who thought you were chasing something foolish, maybe by a partner who left because they couldn't see where you were headed, maybe by people in rooms you weren't even invited into, rooms where decisions were made about your ceiling without you present. Here's what I need you to understand. Every single one of those moments was a gift, not because suffering is beautiful, not because struggle builds character in some vague motivational poster way, but because the people who dismissed you handed you something they didn't intend to hand you. They handed you clarity. When no one is watching, you find out who you actually are. When no one is cheering, you find out what actually drives you. When no one believes in the outcome, you find out whether you believe in it, and whether that's enough. Silence is not weakness. Silence is the calm before you move. And the most dangerous people in any room are the ones who have already decided, quietly, firmly, without announcement, exactly what they're going to do next. Stay silent. Keep building. The storm is coming. They just don't know it yet. Here is what nobody tells you about being underestimated. It is the single greatest strategic advantage a person can have. Think about what it means. When people underestimate you, they stop watching you. They stop tracking your moves. They stop preparing for you. They assume the game is already over. And because they assume that, they get comfortable. They get careless. They stop locking doors they think you'll never find. And that's when you walk right through them. Every underdog who has ever won, in business, in sport, in war, in life, has won because their opponent had already written them off. The opponent was fighting a version of them that no longer existed. Meanwhile, the underdog had been quietly evolving, studying, compressing years of growth into a period when nobody was paying attention. Thomas Shelby operated this way in every room he entered. He let powerful men believe they were in control of the conversation. He let them speak first, sit higher, dress better. He let them have every visible marker of power, because he understood something most people never grasp. Visible power is borrowed, real power is built. And real power doesn't need to announce itself, because eventually, inevitably, it reveals itself on its own terms. What does that look like in your life? It looks like the job you didn't get, and the company you built instead. It looks like the relationship that ended, and the version of yourself that emerged from the wreckage. It looks like the investor who passed and the product that proved him wrong 2 years later. It looks like the teacher who said you weren't academic and the book you published at 35. The underestimation was not the end of your story. It was chapter 1. But here's where people make the mistake. They think the architecture of the underdog is just about surviving rejection. It isn't. It's about building with obsessive precision in the period when no one is watching. It's about treating every dark year as a construction phase, every setback as a blueprint revision, every closed door as information about which direction you need to walk. You cannot build a cathedral in a weekend. You cannot transform a life in a moment, but you can, right now, today, make a single decision that changes the direction of everything. You can decide that the people who dismissed you were not gatekeepers. They were just people, limited people with limited vision, and their opinion of your ceiling has absolutely zero bearing on your actual ceiling. Here's a question you need to sit with. What are you building when no one is watching? Not what you post, not what you say at dinner, not what you tell people when they ask how things are going. What are you actually building in the early mornings, in the late nights, in the quiet hours when the world has gone to sleep and it's just you and the truth of where you are? Because that, not your reputation, not your connections, not your circumstances, that is what determines where you end up. Build it well, build it quietly, build it like someone who knows exactly what it's going to become. Let's clear something up before we go further. When I say revenge, I don't mean what most people mean. I don't mean calling someone out. I don't mean a social media post, a confrontation, a moment of petty satisfaction. That kind of revenge is candy. It tastes sweet for 30 seconds and leaves you with nothing. The revenge I'm talking about is the kind that takes years. The kind that doesn't look like revenge at all until it's already happened. The kind where you don't even need to say a word because your life says it for you. Thomas Shelby didn't chase his enemies with anger. He moved against them with structure, with patience, with a plan so far ahead of the moment that by the time his opponents realized they had made a mistake, they were already standing inside consequences they couldn't undo. That is the highest form of revenge. Not a reaction, an inevitability. You want to know the code? Here it is. Simple, brutal, true. Step 1. Stop explaining yourself. Every time you explain yourself to someone who dismissed you, you give them power they haven't earned. You are essentially saying, your opinion of me still matters. It doesn't. Not anymore. The moment you decided to build, really build, you graduated out of the conversation. Let them have whatever narrative they've constructed. You're not in that story anymore. You're writing a different one. Step 2. Convert the pain into fuel. This is not a metaphor. This is literal psychology. Every time you feel the anger, the embarrassment, the sting of being overlooked, you have a choice. You can spend that energy on bitterness, or you can compress it into work, into reps, into another hour of focus, into another step forward. The most productive people in the world are not the most peaceful. They are often the most driven, and they are driven by something that was done to them, something that happened to them, something that was taken from them. They just learned to aim it. Step 3. Play a longer game than everyone else in the room. Short-term thinkers respond to setbacks. Long-term thinkers absorb setbacks and use them as data. When you get rejected, the short-term thinker says, I am not good enough. The long-term thinker says, I understand now what good enough looks like, and I have a roadmap to get there. One question closes, the other opens, and the person who keeps asking open questions outlasts everyone who settled for a closed one. Step 4. Build something they can't ignore. This is the hardest one, because it requires time, and time feels brutal when you're waiting. But there is no shortcut around this. You have to build. You have to create something real. A business, a body of work, a reputation, a skill set, a life that speaks loudly enough that the people who dismissed you have to reckon with it. Not because you need their validation. You've moved past needing that, but because the proof of your life is the only response that cannot be dismissed, argued with, or minimized. The revenge code is not about them. It was never about them. It's about you choosing over and over again to become the person they said you couldn't be. That choice made daily across years. That is the most devastating revenge a human being can execute. And here's the thing, by the time you've done it, you won't even care about the revenge anymore. You'll just be living. Power is misunderstood, almost universally. Most people think power is about what you have. Money, position, status, the ability to make other people do things. And yes, those things are real, but they are symptoms of power, not the source. The source of real power is something far simpler and far harder to acquire. The source of real power is certainty, not arrogance, not bluster, not the performance of confidence. Actual, interior, bedrock certainty. A quiet knowing in the core of yourself that you have a direction, that you understand your own value, and that no external event can fundamentally alter your sense of self. Watch how Thomas Shelby enters a room. He doesn't look around to see if people are impressed. He doesn't check for validation in the eyes of the people who matter. He walks in already knowing who he is and what he came to do. And that certainty, that subtlety, unmovable quality, is what makes powerful people take him seriously before he said a single word. Because true power recognizes true power. Now look at how most people enter the rooms of their lives. They're already scanning, already managing other people's impressions, already adjusting themselves to fit what they think the room wants. And the second you start adjusting yourself to fit a room, you've handed that room a part of you. You've made the room more powerful than you are. The psychology of power requires something deeply uncomfortable. You have to stop seeking approval from the very people you want to influence. This is counterintuitive. Your instinct tells you, if I can just impress them, then I'll have the confidence I need. But it works the other way. You have to find the confidence first, inside yourself, independent of their response. And that confidence is what actually impresses them. People are drawn to certainty the way they're drawn to warmth. It's not logical, it's biological. Here is the practical version of this. Stop asking for permission to take your ambitions seriously. Stop waiting for someone to tell you that you're ready. Stop treating your dreams as something you have to justify to people who didn't dream as big. The person who gives you permission to begin is you. The person who decides you're ready is you. The person who determines whether your ambitions are worth pursuing, that is also you. Thomas Shelby didn't wait for Birmingham to believe in him. He built his empire while Birmingham was still figuring out what he was doing. By the time the world caught up to who he was already 3 moves ahead. You don't need more time. You don't need more money. You don't need the right connections or the perfect circumstances. What you need is to make the decision, one clean, irreversible decision, that you are the person who sees the gap and fills it. The person who is counted out and shows up anyway. The person who, when the smoke clears and the noise settles, is still standing. The psychology of power starts with a decision you make alone, in silence, with no audience and no applause. Make it today, and then go and do the work. Here's a truth about success that nobody in the highlight reel wants to admit. The people who are handed everything, the right schools, the right networks, the right last name, they have a ceiling. It's a high ceiling, sure, but it's a ceiling built by other people, and somewhere deep in them they know it. They know that their position is partially inherited. They know that they didn't earn the floor they started from, and that knowledge, however buried, creates a fragility at the center of everything they do. The person who is underestimated has the opposite problem, and it turns out not to be a problem at all. They know exactly what they're worth because they built every single piece of it themselves. They know which prices they've paid. They know which rooms they were locked out of. They know which rejections they absorbed. And because they know all of that, because they lived through all of that, they carry a kind of certainty that cannot be manufactured. This is what the underestimated know. They know they can survive. They've already proven it. The worst things that could happen, the failure, the embarrassment, the fear that paralyzes people who have never been tested has no power over someone who has already been tested and come out the other side. Thomas Shelby carried the trenches with him everywhere he went, not as trauma alone, though it was that too, but as proof. Proof that he had already been through the worst thing. Proof that he was still here. And that proof gave him a freedom that men who had never suffered simply did not have. He could bet everything because he already knew he could survive losing everything. What has your suffering given you that comfort never could? Think about that. Sit with it. Because I think if you trace the edges of the answer, you'll find something unexpected. You'll find that the version of you that was rejected, overlooked, underpaid, doubted, that version of you was being compressed like coal, and compression under pressure over time doesn't destroy. It creates diamonds. You have something now that you could not have bought, borrowed, or been given. You have the knowledge of your own resilience. You have the proof that you can keep going when everything says stop. You have the memory of every door that closed on you, and the evidence that you found another door. The people who never got lost don't know the joy of finding the way. The people who were never doubted don't know the specific, private, electric satisfaction of proving those doubts wrong. You know, and that knowing, that lived, embodied, bone-deep knowing, is the thing that will take you further than talent, further than luck, and further than anyone who is still betting against you ever dreamed possible. Every empire is built on patience. Every empire. Not the visible moments, the wins, the announcements, the moments people screenshot and share, the invisible moments, the Tuesday morning when you're tired and nobody's watching and you do the work anyway, the month when nothing seems to be moving and you keep showing up, the year where everyone else quit and you decided for no reason anyone could see that you are not going to be one of them. That is where empires are built, in the invisibility, in the compound interest of daily decision, in the long stretches between the visible victories. Thomas Shelby understood the long game so instinctively that it looked like genius to the people around him, but it wasn't genius. Or at least, it wasn't only genius, it was discipline. It was the ability to hold a vision over years, across setbacks, through betrayals and failures and losses, and never let the short-term noise drown out the long-term signal. Most people cannot do this. Not because they aren't capable of it, because they haven't made the decision that the long game is the one they're playing. You are living in a culture designed to destroy your long-term thinking. Every system around you is optimized for the short term. Instant feedback, instant validation, instant delivery. And the result of all that instant gratification is a population of people who are deeply, physiologically uncomfortable with patience, who abandon the plan the moment it gets hard, who mistake slowness for failure, who confuse the silent building phase for being stuck. You need to make a decision about which game you're playing. Because if you're playing the long game, if you're building something real, something that compounds over time, something that will still be standing in 10 years, then the rules are different. The metrics are different. The timeline is different. And most importantly, the emotional response to difficulty is different. When you're playing the long game, a setback is not a sign that you're on the wrong path. It is the path. It is the thing that the path is made of. And the people who succeed at it are not the ones who avoided difficulty. They're the ones who recalibrated every time they hit it and kept going. Here's what I want you to do. Not metaphorically. Literally, write down where you want to be in 5 years. In real, specific terms. Not vibes, not feelings, but measurable reality. Then work backwards. What does year 4 look like? Year 3? Year 2? This year? This month? This week? Today? The long game is just a series of short days, joined by a consistent decision to keep moving. Every single person who ever underestimated you made their bet on who you are right now. But you're not betting on right now. You're betting on who you're becoming. Place your bet and then get to work. There comes a moment, and you'll know it when it happens, when the room shifts. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not a single dramatic scene. It's a series of small adjustments in how people speak to you, how they listen when you talk, whether they interrupt you or wait, whether they come to you or wait for you to come to them. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the energy in every room you walk into begins to change. This is not about ego. This is not about needing to be respected for its own sake. This is about the natural result of a person who has done the work becoming undeniable in a room full of people who can recognize what real work looks like. The people who doubted you, most of them will never say they were wrong. That's not how humans work. They will simply begin to treat you differently. They will forget, conveniently, that they ever doubted. They will reframe their skepticism as caution. They will tell the story in a way that positions them as having always seen your potential, even as they once did everything in their power to ignore it. And here is the test of your character, what you do in that moment. Because that moment is where a lot of people stumble. After years of being counted out, the validation feels intoxicating. The doors that were closed suddenly open. The people who didn't return your calls suddenly appear in your inbox. And the very human temptation is to let the bitterness surface, to remind people of what they said, what they did, who they were when you were nobody. Don't do it, not because they deserve your grace. Some of them don't, but because you are not building a life for them. You never were. The moment you spend energy reminding people of their past mistakes is the moment you reveal that you are still carrying those mistakes with you, and you were never meant to carry them. Thomas Shelby, at his best, did not celebrate over his enemies. He moved past them, quietly, efficiently. The way a river moves past a boulder, not because the boulder doesn't matter, but because the river has somewhere to be. You have somewhere to be. The room is shifting right now. Maybe you can feel it. Maybe you're still in the period before it shifts, still in the quiet building phase, still in the part of the story that looks, from the outside, like nothing is happening, but things are happening. You are happening, and the moment the room shifts is not the end of the journey. It is just the first time the outside world catches a glimpse of the journey you've already been on. Stay on it. Stay consistent. Stay dangerous in the right way. The way of someone who wakes up every morning with a clear vision and the iron discipline to move toward it. The room will catch up. It always does. You've been patient long enough. Actually, that's not entirely true. You've been some version of patient, but there's a difference between the patience of someone who is building and the patience of someone who is waiting. And I want to make sure, right now, in this final section, that you understand which one you need to be. Waiting is passive. Waiting is hoping that circumstances change, that luck arrives, that someone notices you and decides to open a door. Waiting is a strategy that belongs to people who believe their life is something that happens to them. Building is different. Building is the understanding that your life is something you are actively constructing, imperfectly, sometimes slowly, always deliberately, and that every day is a material in the structure. You are not waiting for your story to begin. You are writing it right now, in the way you spend your morning, in the habits you protect, in the standards you hold for yourself when no one is grading you. Thomas Shelby didn't wait for opportunity. He manufactured it. He sat in rooms where he wasn't supposed to be and said things that weren't supposed to be said and made deals that weren't supposed to be possible because he had decided that the rules of the old world didn't apply to the world he was building. And he was right. What rules are you accepting that were written by people who had no stake in your outcome? What limitations are you carrying that were handed to you by someone who needed you to be limited? What version of yourself are you still presenting to the world? Because it's the version people decided on years ago, before you had any say in the matter. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to evolve past the story people wrote about you. You are allowed to walk into rooms as the person you are becoming, not the person they remember. You are allowed, and in fact, you are required if you want to live fully, to be more than the ceiling that was placed over you. Here is the final instruction. It is 3 words. Become the evidence, not the argument, not the announcement, not the person who tells people what they're going to do, the person who does it quietly, relentlessly, without waiting for permission or applause or acknowledgement, and lets the results speak in a voice that no one can talk over. The man they underestimated always becomes the one they fear, not because he wanted to be feared, but because he became too real, too built, too undeniable to be dismissed any further. You have been underestimated. Good. Now use it. The game was always yours to win. They just didn't know it yet. And honestly, neither did you. But now you do. You know what you're building. You know what it's going to cost. You know what silence looks like when it's working, and what patience looks like when it's productive. You know the difference between waiting and building. So here is where this ends. Not with inspiration, not with a feeling, but with a decision. The decision to go back to your life right now and make one move. Not tomorrow, now. They'll catch up eventually.